feel like squeezing your hands together, your face, get the blood going again. And then when you feel ready, just start to crack your eyes open slowly. Take your time. Baby, I have some water. Are we rolling?
Mhm.
Great. How's everyone doing? Good? Any questions or observations about the meditation? Simple? Simple? Right.
It worked.
It worked. It worked. Now,
For
when
me.
it worked, yeah. Now, when you say it worked for you, how do you know that? What
How
prompts?
do I know that?
Yeah, what prompts? What prompts?
Because I
you
was
to say
just, hanging in space.
Uh-huh.
I was listening to you and I was responsive.
that? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like the way you said, just hanging in space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's an ease.
An ease.
Right. There's an ease. There's maybe a settling down. Sometimes it can seem very profound. We feel just profoundly settled, like we're down to the base. We were talking about this, I think, a couple of months ago. Maybe the physicists cosmologists have determined the lowest note in the universe. Not only the lowest note there is, the lowest note there could ever be. I can't understand the physics, the mathematics of it, but it's a B flat. I'm not making this up. It's a B flat, something like, I think it's 82 octaves below middle C. Okay, and just like, the speed of light can't be any faster or slower, it's just somehow the architecture of the universe is such that that is the lowest vibration, the lowest note that can. So anyway, so sometimes you feel in your meditation like, oh, that's it. I settled down to that B flat, man, 82 octaves, wherever it is, I was there. And sometimes you feel, yeah, it was okay, it was easy. I wasn't working at anything. I didn't feel profoundly settled down like that. Sometimes you feel, oh man, I was just feeling antsy and so forth. So yeah, but it's important to know this, because the next time you meditate, you might feel profoundly settled down again, or you might feel antsy. And if you feel antsy, oh,
We know who that is.
it's the president.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's just, there's like 3 or 4 helicopters.
Yeah.
Well, they came in and out of.
Yeah, they were
Oh my
coming in and out of
goodness.
Santa Monica Airport today.
It's just 2 actually.
Like $100,000 just for photos.
Oh, there's another one. Oh, that's the airplane. There's an airplane. Wow.
No, that's that special kind of half airplane, half
Yeah.
helicopter thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I saw coming in today. Yeah.
Wow, those are amazing.
Yeah, no, I saw, that's funny. I didn't know what it was. I was like, what is that thing?
It's like the C-130, or I can't remember what they call it.
Oh,
but
because
that was a big technological
Bubba.
thing
Yeah.
to develop that.
really
Because the props pivot to an airplane or to a helicopter.
A helicopter, so is that what that? part of that
Anyway,
Sorry.
is? We had to bring that, now I got unsettled. No.
anyway,
Yeah.
meanwhile, back with the important stuff.
Yeah.
Osprey.
Yeah,
Osprey.
Osprey. Okay, Osprey. Meanwhile, so we just want to be really clear about that the experience, the subjective experience, is going to tend to change from one session to another. Sometimes feel really deeply settled, sometimes not so much. And the tendency is to then think that, oh, that's when I was deeply settled, I was doing it right. And when I didn't feel so deeply settled, I must have been doing it wrong. But it's really important to understand, we just want to make sure everyone's clear on this, but, doing what? There's nothing to do, so
Yeah.
there isn't a possibility of doing it right and doing it wrong. So there's something else that's involved in the experience, sometimes feeling more settled, sometimes less. And what it is has to do with what's getting sorted out by the nervous system from one session to another. So specifically, when we get very settled, that loosens up a lot of the accumulated stresses in the nervous system. What the kind of the neurological imprints of our old stresses and traumas. We could think of them as being like little rubber bands that have been tied up, twisted up. And then when the area around the rubber band relaxes, it spontaneously unravels. That's a good thing. We want those old traumas we've been carrying around for months or years or decades that have been subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, influencing and distorting the way we experience things and the way we respond to things, distorting both the input and the output. We want that stuff to unravel so that our input and output is clear, like a clear, we're a clear vessel for experiencing and for responding appropriately to stuff. Now, when the rubber band is unraveling, when these neurological stresses are being released, that's an activity. So it's a funny cycle. We settle down into a state of less activity. As a result, some stuff gets kicked up, some old stresses start to unwind, and that is more activity. It's actually, even if we really want to analyze it a little bit, the mind settles down in meditation. We're not doing anything in particular with the body. The mind settles down, but the mind and body are always connected. So when the mind settles down, it causes the body to settle down. That's why I always emphasize to come out slowly at the end, because we don't realize how deeply settled the body can be, because it happens so kind of organically and naturally. But if you've ever made the mistake of coming out very quickly, you may have noticed that you tend to get spaced out, or you can even get a headache or something, because it shakes up the body. So mind settles down. As a result, the body settles down. As a result, some stress is released. So now there's an activity in the body, and now, because mind and body are always connected, that causes an activity in the mind. And the activity in the mind is the sense of, oh, now I'm having more thoughts. Or, oh, now I'm having these funny moods. Or now my body is feeling fidgety. You see? So you see how important it is to understand these steps, to understand the mechanics of it. Because we'll think, oh, I'm not having a good meditation. But actually, you're having a very good meditation. That's the meditation doing what it needs to do, which is getting things cleared. So, because the whole point of meditation is not just to have some nice settledness and clarity for 15 or 20 minutes while your eyes are closed, then you open your eyes and it's back to the same old. You want to open your eyes and have more clarity and more settledness and more out here, and that's done through the unwinding of the old stresses. So either way, the process is the same. The experience can be different. The process is the same. The process, we do some little something as an on-ramp. This time we did singing descending fifths. By the way, if reminding you of church, it's because it's amen. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, because that's the letting go. That's the resolution. Question, answer, problem, resolution, amen. So in this case, we did the as our on-ramp. But you could just do following your breath, just really consciously breathing in, breathing out, or you could, gaze at a spot, gaze at the ocean, gaze at your hands, just some little simple something because you've been running around doing a lot of things, so now we do one thing and then we let that go and do nothing in particular. Just resting, notice that, okay, I'm aware, I don't have to do anything to be aware. In fact, try to stop being aware right now. Yeah,
That's a good thing.
It's funny because you can't do it. It's funny because it's absurd. Try to stop being aware. Ready? Go. Right. Aware. So that shows us that there's no effort in being aware. Okay, I gotta be aware. No, we can't help being aware. So awareness is this. It's like try to have space in the room. The nature of the room is to be space.
If I went into a deep, fanciful, maybe one that I've commonly had, imagination, that's not happening here now, would that diminish my awareness here and now? And does it heighten my awareness here and now not to go into that imaginary story that I love?
Awareness does not get heightened or lowered. Okay, so are you aware right now, Tommy?
But I could space out.
Wait. I'm going to do something here. Go,
Yeah.
just humor me for a minute.
Sure.
Okay. Are you aware right now?
I hope so. I think so.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You see. Now notice what happens when you say "I hope so," "I think
I
so."
don't want to brag.
Okay. When you say "I hope so," "I think so," you're looking at you're thinking about
I'm
it.
being polite.
Okay. So, but don't be polite. Be real. Look at your
I
actual
am aware.
experience.
I'm
You're
as aware as I get.
Okay. Now that's interesting.
Unless
See,
you said something terrible to me that upset my whole thought process and everything, then I can get more aware.
go jump in the lake, Tommy. You big lug. He's sitting there occupying my chair.
If you told me somebody I love died, all of a sudden everything changes and I become more aware. It's like, and it is like jumping in a cold lake.
Okay. I
My
want to
vision and everything changes.
I want to suggest to you that all the scenarios you've been describing here
Or just stuff on the screen. I'm learning.
they're all just stuff on the screen. That's exactly right. Stuff on the screen is not awareness. Stuff on the screen is the stuff you're aware of. Okay? It's the stuff you're aware of. I'm aware of happy thoughts. I'm aware of upset thoughts. I'm aware of feeling. You say, well, I'm less aware because I'm so sleepy today. You're aware of sleepiness? Yes. Sleepiness is just another experience. It's more stuff on the screen.
I'm measuring it by, in this instance, of whether it's here and now or it's in the future or the past or my imagination.
Have you ever experienced anything in the future or the past?
In my imagination.
Yeah, and where is that imagination happening?
In the present.
That's right. That's right. This is very important. Imagination, you have never experienced anything in the past. You have never experienced anything in the future. When we talk about experiencing something in the past, we're talking about memory. What is memory? It's a thought. It's a particular subset of thoughts. Where is that thought? When is that thought being experienced?
In the present.
In the present. And I really want you to really look at this. This is important. Do you ever, can you ever experience anything other than in the present?
No.
No, because there's no reality. Reach out and touch the experience of 1 second ago. Try to do it.
I wish I could.
You can't. You can't. Thank God, no. Thank God you can't. Okay, things would be really screwed up. They'd be really weird. They'd be really weird. Because it has no reality. It has no reality. Try to touch 2 seconds in the future. Yeah, you can't do it. You can't. There's only the present. There's only the present. Everything else is a thought. And the thoughts are in the present. It's really, really important to be clear on this.
You reminded me, I recently heard something that one of the characteristics of humans is that our present is always 2 seconds behind.
Yeah, okay, so there's some, physiological stuff, but what we're dealing with
Yeah.
is experience, our actual experience. If you tell me that I can look at a book and read a book about neurophysiology and get, okay, there's a 2-second lag or something like that, but that's not my experience.
Right.
So I'm not saying there's no validity to it, but I'm saying we've got a lifetime of stuff getting clear about what we actually experience without getting into theoretical stuff or stuff we read
Right.
in books.
Okay.
That's what we do here. That's our agenda here, is to be clear on what you actually experience. If you can be just clear on what you're actually experiencing, because all the sages are very clear about this. This is what they're saying over and over, is that nothing else needs to be added to the experience of this moment. Nothing needs to be taken away from the experience of this moment. Not that in order, if you were a Buddha means an awakened one, an enlightened one, someone who pure, not a Buddhist, a Buddha. Okay? If you were a Buddha, what would you want to change about your experience as you're sitting there in this chair right in this moment? What would you want to add to this moment of experience, or take away from it, or modify about it, so that you could be totally chill with it? You know the answer.
If you're an
You don't
actual
have to think.
enlightened one. If
And
you're
yeah, someone who's just who's awakened, who's enlightened.
To accept and be content with it,
Would
and to realize what it is.
would the Buddha say, "Oh man, if only I could accept and be content with this, then I'd be okay"?
No.
No. Or is the Buddha by definition someone who's accepting and content with it? Yeah. And there's a reason why. It's not because he's given up trying to make things better and he's okay. I'm going to settle. I'll just settle for this shit, right?
Because it's so good, you don't need it.
Yes, because he's gone. Oh, this is good shit. This is the best shit there is. That just as it is. These are thank God these words were set down in the sutras, the transcripts of the teachings of the Buddha. That after his, at least according to the story, the way it's come down to us, his 49 days and nights sitting under the tree, where he said, okay, I'm going to sit in this spot. I'm not going to budge until I become completely awakened, until what needed to be done is done. And after 49 days and nights, supposedly, okay, that's it. He's done. And he looked at the morning star, beautiful Venus, over the eastern horizon just before sunrise, and he said, how wonderful, how wonderful. And then the next part, I want to point out what he did not say. He did not say, how wonderful, I finally changed my experience. Or how wonderful, I finally got rid of those thoughts. Or not even how wonderful, I finally got content and happy with how things are. He says, how wonderful, everything is enlightened just as it is. Right? And you read this over and over, and some of you have had glimpses, and maybe really solid glimpses of this in your own experience, which is, sooner or later, there's the forehead slapping moment, I call it. The Homer Simpson moment. Dope. Okay, of going, just as it is. He wasn't fooling around. Right, just as it is. I don't need to change anything. I don't need to add extra whipped cream and slivered almonds and a maraschino cherry on top. I don't need to get rid of, in order for it to be, what I've been looking for in every moment of my life. That ultimate happiness that I was looking for in things and in experiences and in substances and in relationships. Everywhere in the things I was aware of. Kept trying to rearrange the, rearranging the deck chairs on the deck of the Titanic, right? Right. We keep trying to rearrange all the stuff we're aware of if we can get it just right. Just, have this perfect breakfast, and then we go. It doesn't mean that you don't try to, of course you keep doing that stuff. Try to make things as nice and pleasant as you can for yourself and for others. But we keep looking for ultimate happiness there and not finding it there. Because it's not there. It's not there because we already have it. But we keep overlooking it because we keep looking out at all the blips on the screen instead of the screen. Right? And the screen is awareness, and this is why it's so important that when I say, "Are you aware?" That simple question. I mean, it seems like a stupid question to ask, but it's really important to be clear on this. That the answer is
Yes.
yes, thank you. And it's not more aware or less aware, or okay, now it's not that, what was the thing you said before, I was trying to be modest and, not copping to the fact that I'm aware. There's nothing special about being aware. It's just, it's all we've got. And just like when we, being clear about the present moment. Actually, awareness and presence, or present moment, are the same thing. It's where everything happens. It's where everything is experienced. And one wonderful teacher of Yaffa's and mine, we're actually going to see him next month on the East Coast, Charles Genoux, this just brilliant Buddhist teacher who's coming in from Switzerland. And friends, YouTube friends, check. I wrote about it in the last newsletter. He's got some teaching activities in March on the East Coast, and you want to see him. He's great. Anyway, so this great thing that because people tend in the spiritual world, one of the things that they tend to fetishize is the present moment. I'm living in the present now. I'm so spiritual. It's so hip. It's so and Charles said, there's nothing special about the present moment except that it's all we have.
You can't do otherwise.
We can't do otherwise. We can't do otherwise.
But
Like I would think sometimes, I remember Ram Dass's book, which is up here somewhere, Ram Dass's famous book, Be Here Now. And I remember the first time I saw the title, I thought, well, where the hell else can you be? Now, of course, what it means is realize that you're here now. It just says it in a little more poetic way. But it's realize that you're here now. It's realize exactly what we were talking about before, that your thoughts about the past and the future and possibilities and hypotheticals and desires and fears and all that, that if when we get caught up in them, we lose track of the fact that we're here now. We lose awareness of our awareness. We're always aware, but but it's different to be aware that you're aware, right? And actually, Charles had another wonderful description of this. He said it's like the thoughts are like travel brochures. You've got a stack of the travel brochures on the table. And this one is visit beautiful Hawaii, and this one is visit beautiful whatever Greenland or something, right? And you pick up the one visit beautiful Greenland, and you go, oh, cool! I didn't realize they've got fjords there, and they I don't know, whatever. They serve some really good, delicious fish, and you get so caught up in that it's as if you're walking around in Greenland, and you forget that you're reading a travel brochure. So in the same way, we can get so engrossed in the thoughts and the memories and the desires and the fears and all that we lose track of the fact that we're present and we're aware. Yeah, Kathy.
So, when you were describing the Buddha saying how wonderful, so, I mean, that sounds like something like positive to me, but okay, if he opened his eyes, Buddha, enlightened, and he saw something like, well, I'm gonna make, you know, because to me it would be horrible, like some horribly violent thing happening, somebody killing someone else.
Mhm.
But if he was enlightened, would he just say, you know, would it be just like, it's okay? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? He wouldn't say how
Yeah.
wonderful, I don't know.
Okay,
You know, you see my question, okay?
Yes, yes, I see your question. I've been answering this question for
40 years.
many decades, but we always have to come back to this question,
Okay.
right? What was it? I forget now which sage it was who said, yeah, every maybe it was the Dalai Lama. Yeah, the universe is perfect, but there's always room for improvement. That there's okay. Let's talk about it this way. We can talk about it in terms of there being two aspects of life, two aspects of existence. We can call it for now the absolute and the relative. Okay, the absolute is the awareness. It's absolute because it doesn't change. It doesn't come and go. We don't have more of it or less of it. We don't have it. We don't, you know, sometimes get a shipment of awareness and it's it's defective. It's, you know, like I just got a bunch of socks from Amazon, you know, and it's not like, oh, the ones they shipped me were too small, right? Awareness is just awareness. It's actually the same as presence. It's actually the same as existence. It's like open space. It's not. It can't be too big or too small because it has no size. It can't be kind of yellowish this shipment and kind of bluish this size. It has no color. It's like, as my teacher Maharishi said, it's like it's just nothing.
Okay.
But there's something very good about it, unquote. It's just nothing, but there's something very good about it. And that's why you said when you came out of the meditation, that's why you were feeling good about it. You're just settling to this. It's nothing. It's like space, but there's something very good about the freedom of settling into that.
Yes, like suspension.
Yeah, like a suspension. And what's suspended, yeah, it's almost like we're floating. We're like weightless, but because the weight. And of course we haven't become physically weightless, but it's like the mental weight, the emotional weight of dealing with stuff, the incessant dealing with stuff. We become free of that. That's why it's called moksha, liberation.
Ooh.
Liberation.
Moksha.
Moksha. The last couple of times we wound up quoting, reading from William Blake, quoting poems from William Blake. And I'm actually doing some writing about Blake right now, and there's this wonderful picture, you can look it up, called Albion Rose. Sometimes it's called Glad Day, and it's this picture. It's probably a youthful self-portrait of Blake, and it's just this. He's a man. He's completely naked, and he's kind of like
Michelangelo.
Is it Michelangelo who did the
Or
Vitruvian?
Leonardo
No, Leonardo, the
Yeah.
Vitruvian man with the arms like this, but like rainbow colored light is just radiating not only from his head like a Christian halo, like the chaste Christian saints, and then they're just, robes from the neck on down. He's completely naked, and it's, the light is radiating out of his whole body. So it's like everything, body, mind, it's just, this is what liberation looks like, joy. So you'll find this listed as Albion Rose or as Glad Day. So the absolute, that's where we find the happiness we've been looking for. The okayness, the infinite okayness that we've been looking for in stuff, we find it in the liberation from all the stuff. And at first, we just get glimpses of it in meditation, and sometimes other places. Sometimes when you're, Beth, when you're working in the garden, I know you get into your rhythm, and it's just, there's just, right? And Tommy, I know you get it sometimes when you're working out, when you're, right? It's just, you hit that zone, and then more and more, especially if we sit down and meditate every day, so that it doesn't depend on being able to get out in the garden or have a good workout. It's just, we just, wherever we are, we can close our eyes. More and more that's, and the more and more as we're releasing the neurological stresses, you know, out of the system, we get more and more clear, and more we can be consciously in that space of moksha, liberation all the time. So that's the absolute. So that's where the okayness is.
Okay.
That's the everything is fine just the way it is. That's on the absolute level. Now on the relative level, there's always business to take care of. And we still take care of business. It you know, in the cliche, the stereotype is the meditators that, oh, everything's mellow, man, it's fine. So, you know, someone's being murdered there, oh, but it's everything's groovy,
Right.
they just don't understand. No, you still take care of them. You still, and in fact, you're much better equipped to take care of others, because now your happiness is taken care of, your happiness is stable. You know, because we're walking around all the time, you know, like little Oliver Twist, you know, please sir, I want some more.
So you could take care of them while you yourself were in the awareness.
You
Or
yourself,
you yourself were aware.
you yourself are aware, because you're you yourself are always aware.
I'm thinking like an enlightenment.
Aware,
not
yeah,
me, you know.
yeah, you
You're
yourself
aware
are,
of awareness.
You yourself are aware of awareness, right? You yourself are aware of the boundless spaciousness, the infinite okayness of awareness all the time. That's the definition of enlightenment. And yes, that makes you more equipped to take care of people. You know, I always like to cite who are the great social because I grew up in a family of political activists,
Me too.
you know. And so you may have noticed the same thing that I noticed, which was that they were really all about peace. I mean, I grew up as a little kid, I was on, you know, carrying my little ban the bomb sign, you know, next to my mom and dad. And they would have the meetings, with the political meetings of their friends at their houses, you know, and they were peace activists. But even at an early age, I started to notice they don't seem very peaceful within themselves. And then when I met my teacher Maharishi, and I heard him say, for the light bulb to light up the room, it first has to be lit within itself. I went, there it is. And when we think of the really great social activists, the ones who've really changed the world, right?
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Thich Nhat Hanh, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Dr. King,
Dr. King.
right? Every one of those that we think, just intuitively, we know that wasn't a person that was stressed and angry.
Sister Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
Also Teresa, Sister Teresa.
So, yeah, that they're all people that we get a sense that there's something, there is that ease, there is that peace within them. I don't know, we can certify, okay, this one is 100% Buddha enlightened, but to some degree they're coming from that space of peace. We know in the case of Nelson Mandela, because he wrote in his memoirs about it, that for him it came about in all his years imprisoned on Robben Island under brutal conditions. And he said he reached a point where he realized his choice. He said, my choice was was to either go insane or learn to love the people that were tormenting me. Right? You know, you ready for that? You ready for that? But you know, he was put in a place where the choice was very stark. And to do that, there was something that had to crack open within him. You know? So yeah, and you know it from your own experience by now, right? You've been doing this meditation for a while. Have you gotten worse at dealing with situations?
No.
No. Have you gotten more passive and apathetic about other people's suffering?
No.
No. And I'll bet you've gotten more tuned into it, because there's less of a chance of your being overwhelmed by it. Because the more you're anchored, the more you're stabilized in your own unshakable peace, the more you can afford to get out there, you know, boots on the ground, and do what needs to be done for others, because you're okay. Your okayness can't be shaken. And again, like Dr. King, like Nelson Mandela, you know, Dr. King, he knew he was going to be assassinated sooner or later. He was very clear about it. He said it in a speech, I think the night before he was assassinated. You know, and to have that courage, that comes from there's got to be some resolution, some contact with that place of boundless okayness. You know, and if you can really act from that place, you can change the world. And God knows we need it now. You may have noticed. Yeah.
I'm aware.
You're
I heard this phrase I'd like to share on this subject, just the other day, it's very short. It was cultivate joy, even though you know the facts.
Cultivate joy,
even though you know the facts.
even though you know the facts.
I thought that was good.
Right.
That's good.
I
Right.
wrote that, I heard
Right.
it and I wrote it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's a wonderful sentiment. Fortunately, we know how to do that. Because a lot of people could have that sentiment, but not really know how to do it in a profound way. Like, okay, well, how do you cultivate joy?
Yeah, right.
You know, okay, have a nice day, happy face, inside, you know. And I know that there are people who try to do it that way, because I used to be one of them, right? Yeah, I used to, okay, I'm really spiritual, you know, nothing's gonna bother me. You know, because you read these passages, I made this mistake, and it's a classic mistake. You read, because I was at it from, you know, in high school, I was starting to read the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao Te Ching and the Upanishads, but I misunderstood them in exactly the classic way of misunderstanding. There's a few classic misunderstandings, and I did every one of them. One was that it means you've got to withdraw from life, and you know, you've got to be a monk and you know, go be in a cave. And one is that because I read these passages like in the Bhagavad Gita where it describes the you know, the state of enlightenment, and says, you know, one to me are fame and shame. What is it? One to me are fame and shame, loss and gain, pleasure and pain. Okay, it's one of the translations that goes something like that. Okay, one to me are fame and shame, pleasure and pain. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna try to be, I'm not gonna be affected by these things. I'm gonna, right, stiff upper lip. That's not it. That's on a very superficial level. That's making an artificial mood of enlightenment. It's a very different thing is settling down into that place, what we do in this meditation, settle down into that place, which is by its nature not affected by fame or shame or pleasure and pain. You know, just as the space in the room is not affected by, is the bowl over here or is the bowl over here, right? Space, skies, sky is just space. The sky is not changed by, you know, to the sky, if there's a violent lightning storm, or there's, you know, gentle breezes, and a beautiful sunset, it's all the same to the sky, because the sky is just space. Nothing damages the space. Nothing leaves indents on the sky, and nothing improves the sky. But it doesn't mean the sky is trying to strain to not feel it. It means the sky just realizes its own nature, which is spaciousness. That's what we do in meditation. And more that natural awareness of the space-like nature of our own awareness just, you know, leaks into our day-to-day life. Yeah.
I just had a question about something you just said. You said that, you know, one of the classic mistakes people make is thinking you have to withdraw and become a monk or live on a mountain or whatever. But people do that.
Yeah.
What is that about?
That's about that's basically because there's two ways to do it. There's two ways to do it. You can do it as a, you know, in the Indian tradition, they say you can be a monk or a householder, right? You can be a monk or a householder, and it has to do with certain inclination. You got to be wired for it. Very few people, especially in the West, are wired to be monks. You know, really to be withdrawn from society. You know, I mean, you know, certainly I'm talking about, you know, bunch of decades ago where, you know, I was like trying to, I knew I was hell-bent for enlightenment. I knew that from a you know, the age 16, 17 years old. And I thought, okay, if I gotta be a monk, then I gotta, you know, okay,
Well, that's kind of like what the Buddha did.
Yes, yeah, the Buddha, right, actually, thank you, right. So the Buddha, that's the classic story, at least, again, the way it's come down to us. You know, first it was the life of completely indulging the senses. Okay, where am I gonna find the good stuff? Where am I gonna find the ultimate joy, the okayness of life? I'm gonna find it, and the first potential answer that he was given was the one that he was given by, the story is that when he was born, the astrologer told his father, okay, this baby is destined to be either a great leader of men or a great monk. And his dad, who was some kind of local king or chieftain or something, said, well, I don't want him to be a monk, so I'm gonna make sure that he just has hot and cold running, you know, he's got dancing girls and you know, all the finest, and we never let him outside the compound, so he's never, we like keep him here in the pleasure garden, so he never experiences suffering, so he doesn't even know that there's such a thing as suffering in life, so he won't become a monk. You know, again, this is the way the stories come down to us. Historically, who knows how accurate it is, but that doesn't mean it's not true. It's deeply true because it's the story of our life. That's our childhood. That's what your parents tried to create for you, the pleasure garden, right? The place where, you know, I remember as a parent, I remember when my daughter was maybe about 2 years old, and whatever was going on in the news, and it was some maybe it was when the American hostages were taken in Iran or something, and thinking, boy, there's people who hate my daughter who've never met her because she's an American. I hate that she has to find that out sometime. I want to put off that time as long as I can, right? Isn't that, as a parent, that's natural, right? So the Buddha first, okay, here's one answer to life. Just, okay, indulge the senses, have nothing but the best, keep all the bad stuff at bay, right? And just indulge. And the story is that one day he went out riding, he went out beyond the walls of the pleasure garden, and he asked his charioteer, oh my God, what's wrong with that person? He said, that's what's called a sick person. And oh my God, what's wrong with that person? Why is that person stooped over and wrinkled? Oh, that's what's called an old person. And why is that person stiff and unmoving? Oh, that's what's called death. So it's a bigger picture than I thought. This answer of just indulging the senses now is that doesn't cut it. So the story is he left and he became a monk. And so then he went in the opposite direction. Okay, just complete abnegation of the senses. Just completely, supposedly, at least in one version, he lived on 1 grain of rice per day. And you see the carving, the statues of him where he's just all, and he said, people could see my spine showing through my stomach, right? And then that didn't do it either. He still had not found that infinite okayness of life. And then the story is that, and he was hanging out in the forest with his brother monks, and finally said, nah, this isn't cutting it either. And the story is that there was a young woman by the side of a river, and she offered him a bowl of stuff kind of like rice pudding. And I've been to that spot, actually. There's a little shrine marking that spot where that's supposed to have happened. And he accepted the bowl, and his brother monk said, ugh, Gautama he copped out. he went off the program. Bye-bye, and they left him there. And that was supposedly his discovery of the middle path, the middle way, not, it's what we would call the sweet spot. The sweet spot. There's always, whenever you're finding, oh, is it this thing over here? No, that ain't it. This thing over here, no. There's some sweet spot, which is not just some tepid compromise, but the place where that's beyond the duality of the this thing and the that thing. You know, it's not indulging the senses, and it's not trying to punish and you know, tamp down the senses. It's something else. And that's when he sat down under the tree, supposedly said, okay, I'm sitting here for till however long it takes. And then he sat there and he tried to control his mind, and he tried to concentrate, and he tried to feel bliss, and he tried all these things that we try until he wore them all out and gave up trying, and then there it was.
But as you said about some people just have the inclination
Yes.
to be monks, but it's not, I mean, that still has its place in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, and he continued to be a monk
Right.
for the rest of his life, for the next whatever it was, 45 years. He continued to be a monk. The point is that the enlightenment doesn't come from being a monk, and the enlightenment doesn't come from being a householder. The enlightenment comes from settling your awareness down into awareness, and noticing that awareness is like open space, and that everything comes and goes within it frictionlessly, and doing that over and over, and more noticing that that's what's going on all the time when your eyes are closed, and more noticing that's what's going on when your eyes are open, when you're interacting in the world. And then, so that's where the enlightenment comes from. And then just incidentally, as you're hanging out being enlightened, you're living your life in one style or another. And some people are going to live it as householders, and a few people are going to live it as monks, because that's their inclination, that's how they're wired. It's like some people are going to live in LA, some people are going to live in New York.
I also feel like when I've seen monks, like whether it's an abbey in the south of France or whether it's the monks in Tibet, there's like a feeling I always have, like I'm so glad they exist on the planet. You know, that there are people who actually dedicate their lives to just praying and being, and even if they're not enlightened, they're dedicating their lives to prayer and peaceful existence in those communities.
Yeah.
Like there's just something about that, and I'm glad some people have that inclination.
Yeah.
Because I don't, but I know some people do, you know.
Yeah. I sometimes feel like and we, every time we sit to meditate, and something, especially there's some special thing when we do it in a group, you know, there's that, somehow that deepened power when we do it in a group, that we're like air conditioners for the world atmosphere. You know, and I really do think that it's thanks to some guy sitting in a cave in Tibet that you'll never meet. Actually, we've met a couple of them literally sitting in, who just spending their lives in caves in Tibet. And literally it's to some degree thanks to us sitting here in this room that the world isn't a whole lot more screwed up than it already is. I really do think that we help keep the atmosphere and make the atmosphere more conducive to some clarity, some peace, some sanity being found. But it doesn't mean don't go to work. You know, you may notice this, for instance, this is an election year, and we always keep things non-sectarian here in the temple. But I certainly have, very definite thoughts about this guy, no. This guy or this guy or this guy or this woman, yes. And I'm do stuff about it, and not just doing diatribes on Facebook. And you may or may not be inclined to be politically active, but maybe it's whatever you do in whatever kind of service you do, and it may be service within your family or service to your friends, or it can be all of the above. And a lot of it again has to do with inclination. But the point is that it's what, again, my old teacher Marish used to call 200% of life. This is the 100% of the inner, the absolute, finding the peace, finding the infinite okayness there, and then the 100% relative. You come up, he used to say, it's like pulling the arrow back on the bow. Right? The point of pulling the arrow back on the bow, he says, it's like, okay, there's a target there. In other words, the target is like goals, things that we want to accomplish in life, to make life better for ourselves and for others. Now, if you're trying to get that arrow into the target by throwing it, that's not going to work very well. It's not going to have enough energy to get there, and it's really hard to aim. So what we do is we pull the arrow back on the bow, exactly 180 degrees away from the target. Now, if someone who doesn't understand how archery works comes along just when we're here and goes, "What are you doing?" You go, "Oh, I'm propelling this arrow toward the target over there." You go, "No, boy, are you stupid? You're pulling it the wrong way." So in the same way, someone comes along, you're meditating, they go, "What are you doing?" You go, I'm preparing for dynamic activity." And they go, no, you doomkopf, you're sitting with your eyes closed. But that's where we can say, yeah, well, just wait. Because we know, then we come out of meditation, and it's just like, now we're invested with more, what is it called in physics? This is potential energy. And then when we let the arrow go, it's kinetic energy. Converted to kinetic energy. And that's and that's the beautiful rhythm of sitting down every day. Sitting down is really good to sit down every day and meditate. And so, pull the arrow back, and then let the arrow fly forward. And more you get that rhythm, the arrow is coming further back, and it goes more effortlessly, more effectively forward. So, we'll do this in another 2 weeks from now.
Day long in New Jersey.
Yes, a day, right. So I'm going to be in New Jersey in a couple of days. I got 2 events. So YouTube friends, one of them you can't go to because it's a Northern State Prison. It's by special invitation only for people who are locked up. You don't want to go there. But on Sunday the 23rd, we have a day-long retreat in West Orange. We're pretty close to capacity, but if you're interested, go right now to my website and you can find out the info there. And then 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be back here in Santa Monica doing this again. Okay, so.
Oh, that's fire. California.
Wait.
No, I mean, that's just.
Wait,
If you
just sit for 10 seconds, 30 seconds here.
No, it doesn't affect the meditation.
Yeah, okay, so, let's finish here.
California.
So, may all beings swiftly realize that true happiness, their own true nature, and then may the arrow of their awareness fly forward into beautiful, harmonious, peaceful activity, facilitating the peace prevailing throughout the universe. And the Sanskrit for that same thought, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti.